Aqua friends, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to do a still life on these beautiful apples. A fall fresh fruit, sweet, tart, and delightful. So I also want to talk about the paper that I'm using, and I have been painting on this new paper that I don't usually use. I usually use Arches. But this is a German watercolor paper called Honeymoon, and I've been testing it out. And I have to say, I had such a hard time with this painting that I am definitely going to not use this paper for very detailed type of paintings. First of all, I just want to say that this is 140-pound cold press paper. As you can see, I am starting out with the main apple masked with a frisket. I used adhesive contact paper and covered up that main apple. So what I'm doing is wetting each apple individually and putting in the colors of that apple and skipping, those sections and going to a dry section and repeating the process. So I'm skipping around the canvas and getting as much done as I can on all the background. So skipping around like this allows the apples time to dry, and I still get to work on other apples instead of having to wait for each apple to dry. I also tried a very, very small line in between the apples where I didn't wet the section, but unfortunately sometimes if you go over on that line, you will definitely get it to bleed into the other apple. So the reason why I didn't care for this is trying to get details in wet on wet is not pleasant with this paper. The paint lifts too easily, and it's really hard to put in soft details. It just wasn't cooperating very well for me. I also find that it's not as vibrant as the Arches watercolor paper. The colors are definitely not as pretty. It takes more layers to get the same vibrancy that you do with Arches. But having said all that, I still believe that there's always something to learn from a painting that is not working out. So there's still problem solving I'm trying to do, even though I'm not liking my painting. I think it's worth finishing because you will always learn something from mistakes or from problems that you're having. I think it does help you become a better painter. In the end, I don't feel like this is like a horrible painting, but I do believe that it would have turned out a lot nicer had I used the Arches watercolor paper. So I'll just let you know the colors that I'm using are raw umber, leaf green, quinacridone scarlet, quinacridone red. I also used pyrrole red, alizarin crimson for the darker reds, Van Dyke brown, sap green, and shadow green. So this first layer of my painting, as you can see, I am working around the canvas and just concentrating on getting a first layer of paint on all the apples. So I'm going to be speeding up the video quite a bit here because, like I said, there are a lot of apples. It's a lot of area to cover. We'll just get on with the other processes. If you guys are getting value out of this video and you like my artwork, please think about subscribing and hitting the notification button so that you don't miss any of the videos. I post every Tuesday. So in the second layer, I wasn't going to do this, but I just couldn't stand how muted all those apples were. The only ones that turned out fairly bright were the bottom and left-hand side of the paper, where those are really dark, those apples. They didn't really need a second coat that much, but the ones in the background are definitely really light, and especially the apples that are more of a yellow apple. It just didn't look right to me. So going around, and basically you're going to do the same colors. You're just doing it all over again, and the reason for that is that you'll get more vibrancy. When it dries, it'll dry a darker color. Not adding very much detail at all to all these apples that are in the background. They're out of focus and they don't have that much detail. My least favorite apple is the one I'm painting now. This apple has a very difficult shadow on the underside and a bruise, and the colors that I tried to use for this shadow just made it look very muddy, and I worked over this apple quite a bit. Okay, so fiddling around with that apple again, trying to bring back some nice yellow instead of this muddy color I had there. So now I'm adding a little bit of shadows, a teeny bit of detail, finishing up all these background apples. Now working on that main apple in the same way, I'm wetting it. Gonna start off wet on wet. My favorite colors were using the leaf green and my quinacrided red. I loved this color on the apples. While it's still wet, I'm trying to darken up that red. The second coat of the apple, I'm adding in some sap green with that leaf green, darkening up my reds. So now I'm adding in the pyrrole red, which is very, very strong color, as you can see, and it's a very warm color, and it was definitely throwing off the left-hand side of that apple, so I had to go over and wet everything again and mix the paint up a bit more. On my third layer on this apple, trying to get the yellow parts of the apple a little bit more brighter. I know I still have to go darker because it's still blending in with all the other apples a lot. Putting in the shadow that's on that left-hand side. There's also like a bruise there on that apple I'm trying to mimic. It's very flat, trying to give it a more three-dimensional shape here. Another thing I found about this paper is that it was really easy to create blooms when you don't want them. Okay, this last layer I'm doing is a detail layer. So I'm gonna make sure I add a good amount of dry brushing, getting the stem of the apple to look really nice. And I just wanted a really nice and clean outline so that the eye gets drawn to that main apple. So I decided to use a really good amount of the Quin red mixed with my Pyrrole red to get a really nice strong bright red color here. And then from that outline I just did my dry brushing to get in that three-dimensional look, because like I said, it's a very flat looking apple. So these final little touches definitely made a difference. This really pretty shadow color is made by using the shadow green and alizarin crimson. And that is the finished product.